So before I can show you what a Mobius loop looks like or break it down so that we can learn it, we need to define what a Mobius is. Now initially I couldn't find any description of what a Mobius is supposed to be. On Heli and on a couple of the other sites, some people describe it as a half piraflip that's been stretched out, and other people describe it as a figure of 8 where one half is done upright and the other half is done inverted. So it's all very confusing. Then eventually I did find a definition on the RC Heli Nation pilot proficiency program. And weirdly enough, it actually gives two definitions. So the first one is the half piraflip stretched out, and the second one is the figure of 8, where one half is upright and the other half is inverted. Now, my personal feeling is it's more like the figure of 8 with a mini rainbow in between. And as Simone has recently done a video on her version of the Mobius, and it's more like the half piraflip version, what I'm going to do is in this video, I think we're just going to cover the figure of 8 version. So this is going to be the figure of 8, one half upright and the other half inverted. So the first maneuver I'd break this down into is just backward circuits. So you want to do a medium to large backward circuit. It's got to have a bit of bank to it, so you can see the model is banked over, and it's got to be really round. So making it round will force you to manage the cyclic. So you've got to be working that cyclic the whole time to make the speed consistent and get the shape. And sometimes what I do is to try and make it as round as possible. I'll imagine that there's a box or a square outside of it, and you'll just try and touch the edge of the square. So there, and on the right and on the far end. And we have to do inverted backwards as well. So exactly the same thing. We want to make it fast enough so you actually have to bank the model over to get it go round. And you want to make it as round as possible. So touch the edge of the square there, touch the edge of the square just in front of you, and then over on the left. This just needs to be a nice, consistent speed. Now, you can find sometimes with doing these sorts of hurricanes, it can be quite lazy because you're not actually being worked, you're not actually working the cyclic that much. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll tend to turn this into a waltz. So a waltz is going to be 4 smaller circles inside each of the bigger hurricane. And what that forces you to do is you really have to work the cyclic. You really have to work that angle and concentrate on the angle, and then the whole time you're trying to keep the speed consistent as well. And this is actually fantastic for learning to fly in wind, because when you're flying in wind you'll be more banked over on the one side than you will on the other, and you really have to manage that. So a waltz, very, very important. And then we'll do the same upright, so we'll just do a waltz and backwards upright. So 4 smaller circles. And I'll just do it at each of the points of the compass. So we'll do one on the far end, then go out on the bigger hurricane, and then do another little one on the left. Return to the bigger hurricane, and then just do a little one right in front of you. And that should give you more than enough control to start your Mobius. So the next maneuver we're going to do before we move on to the Mobius are mini rainbows. And we're going to do this tail in right in front of ourselves, and we're not going to make it too large, just a mini rainbow so it stays right in front of us, and we're going to go left to right and back, and we're looking for a nice clean stop. And then once we're happy with those, what we can do is we can switch it 45 degrees, so we'll go from close on the right to far on the left. And this you'll find a little bit harder. You'll have to work the elevator as well to stop it kind of moving around. But you're looking for a nice clean stop and not too much wobble. And the more work you do with this, the better it's going to be for the Mobius. Now you can switch the 45 degree the other way, so we'll come back on the left and then go far away on the right. And you may find that one of these versions of the 45 is more difficult than the other. So what you do is when you practice this, do that one first. So you tend to practice your weaknesses first, which forces you then to get more practice of that than any other orientation. And then once you've got those 3, you can kind of switch between them. So 45 left to straight, and then 45 right. And this exercise is actually it's safe enough to do outside in real life. And it's really good to do in wind. If you can practice this in the wind, that will make a really big difference. It'll be so much easier for the Mobiuses when you transition from the rainbow to that circuit. Really nice exercise. And this is where we get to merge the 2 exercises that we've done, and we get to do a Mobius. So we'll start with a backward circuit. And then as you get to where the tail is pointing at you, we'll do a 45-degree rainbow away, and the same on this side. So wait for the tail to point at you, and then do a 45-degree, and then carry on with the circuit on the other side. Now you're going to find this as you go over and you stop at the end of the rainbow, it's going to feel a bit stilted and it feels like it doesn't actually flow. So what you need to do is just as you get there and you finish the rainbow, you need to drop that tail using elevator slightly. And what it'll do is it'll just bring you smoothly into that banked circuit. So push it over, drop the tail a little bit, and it'll just be a little bit smoother. And it'll carry a bit of speed into it. And you don't have to rush this. This will just happen over a couple of sessions. And what will happen, it'll get smoother and smoother, and you can get faster and faster. And then your rainbow also doesn't need to be as high. And that's it. You're doing a Mobius. So that was pretty much the standard variation that we just looked at, where it was tail in and blades to the right. But you should definitely look at the other variations as well. It's always good to round your skills. So this is the tail in blades to the left version. And you will find this a little bit trickier because the tail thrust is actually pushing you down. So you'll have to work a little bit harder than the standard version. But definitely worthwhile doing. And then of course if you've done them backwards or tail in, you can do them nose in as well. And you'd learn it in the same way. You just start doing the circuits, and then the mini rainbows, you would practice them nose in. And then if you can do them forwards and backwards, then you might as well do them sideways. And the sideways one is actually quite nice. Here the tail thrust is actually pushing us around, and it actually works out quite well. It's very smooth. So as your Mobius gets better and better, and you're feeling more comfortable with seeing the model in this orientation, and you're getting used to what the sticks are supposed to be doing, you can start to tighten it up. And you can get it to the point where it's actually fairly stationary, almost on the spot. And it'll flow. It's actually quite a nice flowy maneuver. Your cyclic just tends to move around. And then you can do it tail in, blades to the right, but you can also then move it to nose up and nose in again, which is all the same as what the variations that we were doing. And you can even get it to the point where it's just super tight like this. And I think this is more akin to the half pyro flip version that we were talking about in the beginning. So as we said in the beginning, I think there are two versions of the Mobius, and this is the figure 8 with the upright and inverted. But if you're interested in the pyro flip version or the stretched half pyro flip, have a look at Simone's video. I've linked to it in the description below. And I think you'll really like this maneuver. It's not difficult to get into. And it's a really nice flowy maneuver, and it actually works well with the wind as well. If you've got a bit of wind from behind, what it'll do is it'll actually just lift the model up and push it over that rainbow. It's really nice, flows really nice. And as I say, once you get it to the point where it's stationary, that cyclic stick just tends to make a circle and goes round. And it's a really nice maneuver. Let me know in the comments if you want to see the half pyro flip version as well. And also let me know if you struggle with any bits and I can clarify it, or we can do a troubleshooting session. Until next time.